of the 20th century, America was a country full of promise and hope for many. Black Americans faced a different reality, a nation separate and unequal. Yet their hope persisted. Pained by inequality, but inspired by resilience, writer and civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson put pen to paper. His words would become a unifying call, a hope for a brighter tomorrow, a timeless exhortation to lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing a rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory.
There are forces that want to take us back to another place. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward.
Placido, it's so good to be back with you, and what a powerful, powerful video. We won't go back.
We won't go backwards.
No, we won't. No,
we are
we won't.
moving forward.
Yes, we are.
Today's show is Lift Every Voice. There is room for every voice. There is a space for every voice. There is a place for every voice. So we want to just welcome you back to Maintain Monday. Again, so nice to be back in the studio with you, my sister.
Back in our studio.
Back in our studio, Elevation Global Media Group.
Yes, we're excited. And I just want to read a portion of some of the song that was sung. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies.
Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on until victory.
At the dawn of the 20th century, America was a country full of promise and hope for many. Black Americans faced a different reality, a nation separate and unequal. Yet their hope persisted. Pained by inequality, but inspired by resilience, writer and civil rights activist James Weldon Johnson put pen to paper. His words would become a unifying call, a hope for a brighter tomorrow, a timeless exhortation to lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing a rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory.
There are forces that want to take us back to another place. We don't want to go back. We want to go forward.
Placido, it's so good to be back with you, and what a powerful, powerful video. We won't go back.
We won't go back.
No, we won't. No,
we are
we won't.
moving forward.
Yes, we are.
Today's show is Lift Every Voice. There is room for every voice. There is a space for every voice. There is a place for every voice. So we want to just welcome you back to Maintain Monday. Again, so nice to be back in the studio with you, my sister.
Back in our studio.
Back in our studio, Elevation Global Media Group.
Yes, we're excited. And I just want to read a portion of some of the song that was sung. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies.
Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on until victory is won.
What powerful words.
James Weldon Johnson penned that song so long ago, but how relevant are the lyrics in this very day?
So relevant.
And what I find interesting about Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is the Black national anthem for those of you who do not know, many people don't know that there is even a Black national anthem.
Wow.
And many of us, people of African descent, are not taught it.
No.
We don't know it. We hear it. We don't know the words to it. And the words have so much meaning. So today, we at Maintain Monday wanted to bring the lyrics to you in a different way and actually bring them to life. So we have some surprises later in the show for you to do that.
And just awareness. Because like you said, we don't know. And what you don't know, you don't celebrate. What you don't know, you don't acknowledge. So just having this moment, let's just say this is an education moment. I have learned some things in the past 2 years about this song. And I'm just so honored that we are here today to make a difference in our culture, in our communities, and in our circles, because we are sharing with you guys something that we have learned, and we're bringing it here on Maintain Monday. And the scripture says this in Luke 4:18 through 19. And this is the Passion Translation. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and he has anointed me to be hope for the poor, healing for the brokenhearted, and new eyes for the blind, and to preach to prisoners. You are set free. I have come to share the message of Jubilee, for the time of God's great appreciation has begun.
God's great
appreciation.
So what you said about awareness is so important, because like you said, people can't walk in freedom that they don't know that they have, right? And so a new time of freedom has begun in our country. And before we experience it fully, we have to go back. We have to figure out where we've come from so we can know how we can proceed.
And can I say something about that, Neil? I'm from the South, the deep South.
Right.
And I must say, there are people still in the South that are oppressed.
Absolutely.
They are still thinking, let's just say this, they're back in the time where they didn't have the freedom, they didn't have the voice, and they didn't have the liberty. Even today, I tell my children this. I said, if you don't like something, say something. Stop accepting things. You know, be bold in what you're doing and what you're saying. But I think that we as a people need to learn, but just anybody needs to learn. You have a voice.
Absolutely. The scripture also says, Christ has liberated us to be free. Stand firm then, and don't submit again to a yoke of slavery. And that's not just talking about slavery as we know it, right? Don't submit again to a yoke of slavery in your mind, in your actions, in your being, right? So there are policies that have been in place that had us in a mindset of slavery. When yet we were walking visibly free, but not free in our minds. So we have to continue to have these conversations. We have to be a part of the change. We have to lift every voice.
That's right.
So that we can be a part of the change.
And like you said, that bondage. And stop, and I just had this conversation with my daughter, stop giving people power that they don't deserve.
Well, I think it's time to invite
our
guest, who is going to drop some knowledge.
Placer, do you think they're ready for this?
I'm not sure if they're ready for this.
I'm just saying, do you think they're ready for this?
Listen, up next, we have our guest, E.T. Brown, who he's going to tell you a lot about the things that he's doing in the community. He's always been active in the community. This isn't new to him, but he's doing some things right now to make a difference. So right after this break, we will go to Mr. E.T. Brown.
Marriage is commendable and is to be honored among all. And therefore, it is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently, lovingly, and solemnly. Into this covenant, these two persons presented today now come to be joined. If any person can show just cause why they may not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I love the Young Filmmakers Camp.
Hi, my name is Samantha, and I like Young Filmmakers Camp because it's really fun and you get to enjoy time and make lots of new friends, and you get to make fun films and you get to go very fun places.
I like that you could film and you could actually like make your own movies, and like you could show everybody, and like you could you could learn how to make a YouTube channel and like get followers and stuff. If you're into really good filming, you should come to Young Filmmakers Camp.
I love the Young Filmmakers Camp, and I hope you will too. Bye.
Welcome back, and we have with us Mr. E.T. Brown, our special guest, who he's going to be talking to us about what is the history of Juneteenth.
Absolutely. This young man is a pillar in the community. He's an educator. He's an administrator. He is Mr. E.T. Brown, and we're going to let him tell us about all the things he has going on.
Well, first of all, thank you, ladies, for your invitation to be here. Thank you all for being here. I guess my assignment is to talk a little bit about the history of Juneteenth and where we're going from there. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm 55 years old. I have 7 children. They're all grown. I've got, I think, 11 grandkids and counting. So, we have been fruitful and multiplied.
Yes, you are.
I have. I've done a little bit of everything in my lifetime. Some of the people I work with kind of laugh. They say, "You've done almost everything," and I did. I'm from a small town in Western Pennsylvania, Meadville, and not a lot of opportunity there for a young black man. And at 33 years old, I decided I was tired of working for people that, I considered not necessarily better than me or smarter than me, and I decided to go back to school. And I went back to school at 33 with the help of my then wife, Judy Brown. And, we managed to make it through 4 years, got a bachelor's degree, and I went on one job interview. And it's where I'm working right now. I've been in the district where I'm at, Cecil County Public Schools, for the last 18 years. I was a social studies teacher at the middle school and high school level. I've written curriculum for African American studies. I've actually studied the history of my own family, and I'm fortunate to be able to trace, the roots of my family on my father's side to pre-slavery. I actually know the names of the people who were slaves, who were enslaved in my family on that side. I wrote curriculum. I went on something called a Chesapeake Journey with Washington College, where we actually retraced the steps of slavery in America. I've also written curriculum. I've also written professional development for racial awareness, implicit bias. I'm part of the Racial Equity Task Force in my home district, and I've always worked to help students strive to be better. I've also worked with an organization called Equal Opportunity Schools, and one of the things they do is they increase enrollment in AP and IB courses for black and brown students. So, I've been around, I've done some of the history. I've also spoken at several social justice rallies, and I try to, stay informed. I've worked in the ministry for many years with students as well. I've been a coach, I've been a mentor, I've been a lot of things.
Been my children's principal.
Yeah, I've been your kids' principal, their vice principal, and I enjoyed them immensely.
Wow.
Yes, so
I'm quite impressed.
Oh.
And I know this may be another show, but I have some roots in West Virginia too.
Okay, now.
But that's another show.
Well, I'm Pennsylvania, but we throw in
West
distance.
Pennsylvania, okay.
Western Pennsylvania, but it's the same difference.
Wow.
If you've been in Western Pennsylvania, it's pretty close to many parts of West Virginia.
Wow.
A railroad town.
Yes.
So talking about Juneteenth, one of the things that strikes me, because Juneteenth, to give you a little history, Juneteenth is June 19th, 1865. It is when the news of their freedom arrived to the enslaved people of Texas. And it's interesting because the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed 2 years earlier in 1863, and everybody made the address, and everybody celebrates that as, the slaves were emancipated, but it didn't really actually emancipate anybody.
Right.
I like to call that paper freedom.
Oh.
And Juneteenth was where they read the proclamation that said that former slaves and former masters would have absolute equality in property and rights. And that was I call that the starting gun. That's the starter's gun. And I say that because one of the things that we seem to get twisted is we equate freedom and equality. And freedom and equality are not the same
different.
thing.
Absolutely.
Okay? Equality is what you get to.
Yeah.
Okay. Freedom is the ability to struggle to get to equality. And one of the things the freedmen of that day recognized was they needed to celebrate that opportunity. Okay, and they didn't actually even get free that year. Now they knew they were free.
Right.
They on paper they now knew they were free, but there was no actual freedom until the harvest came in, because the prudent choice for them was to stay where they were, work out their wages, and then bring in the harvest, and then the next year celebrate. And the next year was when the Jubilee celebration happened.
Wow. We just read about the Jubilee. So I want to read this next stanza of Lift Every Voice. Stony the road we trod. Just what you just described. Bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet, with a steady beat, have not our weary feet
come to the place for which our fathers sighed? We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come trending our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast.
Wow.
One of the things, and I'm always impressed when I read the lyrics of that song. I learned that as a young child. I was fortunate to have parents who, migrated from the South to the North. My father wanted to be a chef, and in the South you couldn't be a chef.
Right.
And a gentleman by the name of Mr. Vey came into the restaurant where he was working at, and he wanted to know who cooked the food. And they sent out the chef, and he talked to the chef for 30 seconds, said, "I know you didn't cook that food."
I know that's right.
And they sent my father out. He invited my father to Pennsylvania to work at the resort that they had, and that's how my father ended up in Pennsylvania. My mother came afterwards. And I was fortunate because I'm the baby of the babies, and all of my siblings are at least 13, 14 years older than me, and they lived in segregation. They knew what segregation was. They understood it. My brother and my sister, my two brothers and my sister, actually had a confrontation on a bus at one point in time where they were asked to move and did not move. And there was a great threat to them. When I listen to the words of that song, it makes me understand that they understood what they faced then.
That's right.
And part of our issue today is there's a generation, and I'm talking about my generation, there's a generation that became so complacent with the progress that we've made.
That's right.
That we stopped the struggle, and we started treating freedom as if it is equality.
Equal to equality, right.
Listen, freedom says you can be a rapper. Freedom says you can be a basketball player. Freedom says you can be an entertainer. Freedom says all those things. But black people were all of those things in 1942.
Come on now.
And they didn't have any real political power.
Right.
Freedom is not the goal. Equality is the goal.
That's right.
And my generation did the unthinkable. We stopped paying attention. We stopped marching. We stopped voting. We stopped registering other people to vote. We stopped all of that because we got bought off with the idea of opportunity and freedom to make financial gain. And that is important. But six figures will never buy you equality. And I don't care what anybody says. Puffy still isn't equal. LeBron still isn't equal. They still wrote on his house. He's still not equal. And we are just now waking up to the fact that we have wasted 40, 60, 80 years. Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964, and we are no closer to equality now than we were then.
So let me ask you this. So you're saying that the problem is the dollar was shaken in front of us.
Oh, 100%.
And that immediately took our focus off of equality because we wanted to chase the bag.
That's exactly it.
There's a,
And, wait. You just put a pin in that
Come on
statement
now.
right there. Chase the bag, because some of us are still chasing the bag and selling our souls to do that. And so what do we need to do now?
We need to understand what the okie doke is.
That's right.
We need to understand where the okie doke is.
Right.
Here's the okie doke. The okie doke says there's a long-standing philosophy going all the way back into the early days when black people started to vote in the South. If you give them a holiday, they will shut up about voting. If you give them a parade, they will stop marching. If you put them in a position with zero power, they'll still say, I got a position, and you pay them enough money, they'll shut up. And we have been bought off, and that is part of the problem. And I am not against us making our money. I'm not looking to get rid of my job. What I am looking to do is, in addition to making that paper, I'm looking to make some changes. I'm looking to make some inroads into where the real power is. And we have been fooled.
What about having conversations? What about dialogue? Because I want to just be very clear. We are here to talk about what Juneteenth is. We're here to understand the history of it and how we got ourselves into the debacle that we're in right now, right? And so that isn't polarizing to any community, because we want everyone at the table. Am I right?
There's nothing, in all honesty, there's nothing polarized about the entire conversation around
Absolutely.
race.
I just want to bring that into the light.
Absolutely. And you make a great point. One of the okie dokes we've been sold is that the idea that speaking about race makes you racist.
Absolutely.
The idea of speaking about blackness means that you're somehow using the race card, or you're against white people.
Exactly.
And the bottom line is, white people and black people have fought for this country since before this country was a country.
Absolutely.
We just don't remember their names. We don't remember the name of Salem Poor, who was the hero of the Battle of Bunker Hill. He began his life as a slave in New Jersey. He bought his freedom, and upon buying his freedom, he immediately began to fight for the freedom of his fellow man. He became the hero because he fought so valiantly. There are all sorts of people throughout history. There are all sorts of people, and I mentioned this in my upcoming speech. I'm going to plug in here for Elkton's first annual Juneteenth celebration.
Come on.
And one of the things that I talk about is the unity that brought us to the place where we made systemic changes. It wasn't just black people on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. There were white people who left their lives in the North and came south. There are white people who died. There are martyrs who were killed for people for this cause, people with black skin. There have always been, quote unquote, woke white people. That's not new. The problem, as I see it, is there's a generation somewhere around the 70s and 80s where we stopped actually expressing ourselves. We stopped actually responding, and I don't mean responding with my fist. I don't mean responding in anger. We stopped responding intelligently to microaggressions, to use a common term. We stopped telling people. As a matter of fact, I don't have to tell you ladies, I was raised in an era when, you were basically told to never, ever allow white people to know what you were thinking.
Right.
If we can be real about it. And so there's
or you can't trust them.
Or you can't trust them. And the bottom line is, there's some people that you can't trust no matter what they look like.
Right.
Absolutely.
But from our perspective, it has not paid any dividends to actually express what is really going on, which is why so many people were confused about racism. What Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom, and that should be a celebration that all of us can get behind. We can all embrace that.
People of all colors, people of all walks of life.
All stripes can embrace that.
Absolutely.
The only people who don't embrace Freedom Day are the people who are afraid of what we'll do with that freedom.
Absolutely. Or said another way, are people who want oppression.
Who want oppression. And
why wouldn't you celebrate freedom? Why wouldn't you celebrate the opportunity, as you have mentioned, for a people who have been mishandled and mistreated to now have an opportunity to get to equality? We're not even equal yet, but we have the opportunity now to pursue it.
Part of that is that we've all been sold a lie. We've all been sold the okie doke. After the Civil War, there was a literal campaign to change the history of what happened.
Right.
The Daughters of the Confederacy wrote many of the textbooks that were used.
The daughters are gathering now around a different cause.
Yeah.
100%. Because we have gotten to the point now where the lie has been exposed. The cell phone has been the greatest help to this modern day civil rights movement, bar none, of any other tool. Because what the cell phone has done is it has allowed white people who are not racist to see what other white people who are racist behave like, because they did not realize. They didn't realize that people behave like that. They thought everybody was like them, and that's our tendency as human beings.
Well, I have a question. Because you're in the school system and you've been in the school system so long, why hasn't Juneteenth been taught in the school systems until, I think, maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago? All of a sudden, everybody's gaining more knowledge. The students are finding more, finding out why
They're
was
bringing it into the school system.
For the same reason that I saw a person with a graduate degree stand up in an audience and talk about being in college who was from Tulsa. He talked about being a black man in a graduate course in history and hearing about the Tulsa massacre. And he said, I don't understand, this didn't happen. Because he didn't know.
Right.
The reason it wasn't taught is because it was all whitewashed. For the same reason we all believe a whole lot of other things. The same reason there are
slave Bible.
There's a slave Bible.
We read that.
We actually saw that. We went to the museum. Yeah.
And the slave Bible redacted all the parts that they thought would cause us to think we were more than what we were.
To cause us to feel empowered.
Yeah.
And that's it. The parts that they knew that we would read that will empower us, they only kept the part in there that would suppress us.
One of the things that we don't know, and I spoke on this in a college symposium at one point for a gentleman I used to work for. One of the things we don't understand is that this is all rooted in money.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And by that I mean this. In the antebellum period, the most valuable asset a person could own was an enslaved person.
Was a person.
Was a person.
Say that again.
The most valuable
back.
asset a person could own was another person. Slaves were more valuable than coin. Slaves were certainly more valuable than paper, which was worthless at the time. Slaves were more valuable than real estate. The way you knew you were a millionaire in the South was if you owned 50 slaves.
Wow.
If you owned 100 slaves, you were mucho rich.
Woo.
And to this day, I still maintain the #1 consumable product in America is black bodies.
Wow. On that note, let's transition to our last segment, which is Where Are We Now, 156 years later. So let's start by reading the last stanza of the song.
God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who has brought us this far on the way. Did I say that?
Yeah.
Oh, thou who has be thy thy might. Lead us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray.
Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land.
Wow. It's almost like what we just talked about, where we and I don't want to say we've lost our way, because I don't want anybody to think that I don't believe we've made progress as black and brown people in America, because we have. We need to remember, though, that the goal is not progress. It has been 200 years, 158 some years since this proclamation. And I'm hard pressed to explain how it should take 150 years to do what every other group that's come to these shores has been able to do.
Absolutely.
Every other ethnic group has been able to transition from not white to white, which, by the way, is a construct. I won't even get into that, but whiteness is a construct. And every other group has been able to make that move. Native Americans have been allowed to identify as white. Latinos, there's an actual white Hispanic category. Asian people have been allowed to be identified as white. There's a whole lot of folks who've been allowed, Jewish people, Italian people, Irish people were considered to be lesser than the other Europeans. They've all transitioned to whiteness. The only group left is us. And that, in my opinion, has a lot to do with money. It has to do with the roots, and it has to do with racism, which is the balm that they applied to soothe the cognitive dissonance of owning another human being and torturing that person and forcing that person into bondage.
That's a deep statement.
There was no racism before slavery. Now, and I don't mean racism like in Europe where it's based about your ethnicity. I mean the racism that says if you're black, you're less intelligent. If you're black, you're lazy. If you're black, you're more likely to be violent. If you're black, you're more likely to commit crimes. All of those things have to do with money. When we were freed, the South had to decide what to do with us. And they had no intention of coexisting with freedmen. So what you see is the Great Migration. And here we see all the folks run out of the South by all of the laws that were designed to put black people back in bondage. Because here's a secret a lot of people don't know. There's a trap door for those folks that got freed. It's called the 13th Amendment. And it allows people to be put in bondage if they have committed a crime. You saw the rise of crimes after the end of the Civil War.
Prisons.
The rise and criminalization of things like not having a job, called vagrancy, loitering, whistling at a white woman. All of these things were classified as felonies in the South because the South came up with something called peonage. And peonage meant that if you were in a prison, they could rent you out. So many of the black men and women who were freed in 1865, by 1875, were in prison working on the same plantation that they were freed from for nothing because they were back in slavery.
So that is another show, the prison system.
Whole nother show.
That is another show.
Whole nother show.
It really is.
Because, and it's rooted in money, finances as well. So.
And where we are today, I didn't not mean to cut you off, but where we are today is we are still looking for the levers of power in the wrong places. We vote at such a low rate in local politics that it's almost shameful. And that is part of why we've been cut out of equality. Because
it is shameful.
I said this when the previous occupant was in the White House and all these people ran out to protest after the election. I said, I'm tired of you because you missed the protest. The protest was November 4th. That's when the protest is.
Right.
We're protesting at the wrong time. We want to protest with a voice. We want to protest by blocking the street. We want to protest by lifting up our voice and shouting, and all of those things we should do. But the protest that
packs the most power.
Oh my Lord!
Is that vote?
And it's the local vote. It is the vote in the place where you live. It is the local politics. It is your councilmen. It is your county councils. It's your aldermen. It is those. Those are the places, your state legislatures, where they redistrict. They decide who gets to vote where. And
who goes to school where?
Who goes to school where?
What happens in that school?
What money gets allocated to what school? They set the district boundaries in the school. It's not an accident that schools are segregated.
Right.
It's not an accident that black people all seem to live near the railroad, or they all seem to live near the chemical plant, or they all seem to live near the waste processing plant. It's not accidental. It's intentional. And in my opinion, part of the issue is we've been blinded by the gainful employment we can have, the money, the middle class lifestyle that we have access to, that we have taken our eye off the prize. While we're doing all of that, white people have been able to create generational wealth because they don't have the barriers that we have. And I need to touch on this because I've been saying this, and I'm going to continue to say this until we catch this. Part of our issue is that we keep falling for semantic and word tricks. And I'm going to give you an example. In America, we are so loath to use the words black, to use the word black or blackness. We don't want to mention it. And we describe the difficulty faced by black people in our country using the term white. We say white privilege, but in reality, the only privilege we're talking about is that a white person doesn't have the disadvantage of black or brown skin. So what we're really talking about is black disadvantage. But we don't say it like that. And that's part of our confusion. We talk past each other because
then people use that language to create division
100%.
when we should be able to come together around what is obviously not okay, which is black disadvantage. That is a great point. But white privilege, I've heard people that I respect, that I love, have a problem with something that appears obvious to me. All you have to do, and you know, I made a post one day about me and my husband being pulled. Our car had broken down, and we were in a neighborhood at midnight. That if the wrong person pulled up, I may not be sitting here now. So we have to talk about this, and we have to find a language that is going to meet people where they are, so we can make the change that many, and I would almost say most people want to make. Most people of all hues.
100%. We need to use the words that speak the truth.
Absolutely.
And part of the problem is, if I were a white person, you told me I had some kind of privilege, I would probably be offended because I've worked for everything I've earned. However, I can probably get a Klansman to agree that there's a disadvantage to walking around in black skin. It's so much simpler.
That's true.
It's so much simpler because it's obvious. And what we need to do is we need to stick to the obvious things. There are some things that we can talk about that are obvious. Statistics are obvious, and we need to keep on this. Redlining. Redlining.
It's in the history books. I mean, I used to be a settlement officer, and I was looking at deeds that talked about neighborhoods that we were not allowed to be in or purchase property in.
Federal Housing Administration. In the 1950s, the suburbs were specifically created for white people.
Absolutely.
And we were not allowed.
We were not allowed.
Public housing. People think public housing was designed for poor people. It was not. Public housing was designed for working people who made enough money to afford a place to live, but there weren't any places to live. When the public works projects ended, they left the black people, moved the white people to the suburbs, and they subsidize it. And now it is seen as for poor people. We didn't get here by accident, and part of the problem right now is that we are just now waking up. And there are so many people, black, brown, white, Asian, who are actually seeing what is really happening for the first time because of the internet and because all this information is available. The trick of the enemy is to keep us all focused on different things.
That's it.
So that we never see the whole picture.
It's called distractions.
It's called distraction. What has happened in the last 2 years, in my opinion, is an awakening. And it's not been an awakening for us because we already know what happens.
We already know.
We already know what happens.
I watched my boyfriend get chased through the subway station just for being black.
The awakening has been white people being introduced to the side of the family they didn't know existed. Because the same people who were posting racist stuff on their Facebook pages are the same people that were sitting there pretending like they weren't racist at all.
Right, exactly.
And so
exposure.
That you were sitting in church with.
Exposure.
And then things happen, and now we are all confused about what is.
Well, you know, we've been taught to ignore some things. We've been taught to ignore that Sunday is the most segregated day in America. We have been taught to just pretend that doesn't mean something, and it does. And there are so many people of all different colors who are recognizing it. And I'm not mad. First of all, one thing black folks I feel like we need to do, stop being mad at white people for not recognizing racism before this.
And that's what I was going to ask you. So we have talked a lot about the problem. What is the solution for this?
The solution is for us to continue to, and we need to speak in love. Let me just say that. Okay. We need to speak in love, and we need to ask the right questions. And I'm going to give you an example. I was sitting at a dinner. It was a business dinner, and it's a couple that was sitting next to us, and it's a white couple, and we're talking about being on the back of the bus. And I was saying, I was a fat kid on the back of the bus. And if you're a fat kid on the back of a black bus, you got to be able to tell jokes, because the dozens are going to happen. And she said, well, that doesn't have anything to do with you being black. That's just the same as everywhere. And so I almost really got offended as her husband flinched. And then I said, you know what? Okay. how do you know? And she said, what? I said, how do you know it's the same? You're telling me it's the same on the back of the bus and the black bus. Did you ride on a black bus? Well, no. Well, then how do you know? And she had never thought of that. See, I've ridden on the back of a white bus, school bus. I've ridden on the back of a black school bus with mostly black kids. I know the difference. She didn't know, but I asked her that question. I hope in much the same way a woman would ask a man who's describing childbirth, how do you know?
Right.
Because you can't speak on what you haven't experienced.
That's it.
And rather than be angry, we need to ask the question and wait for the response.
That's right.
Because when you get angry, you allow them to take the defensive position, and then they become the victim.
Well, I want to say something to that anger. I think that we as a community need to deal with our trauma.
Oh, 100%.
Because the anger rises up because the trauma has never been dealt with, right?
100%.
And we as a community have dealt with many things that have left a print on our psyche, on our mindset, on our ability to love not only ourselves, but others. And until we deal with that, we cannot have a conversation that is in love with a people who we have pent up anger against.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of us are dealing with it, some of us have dealt with it, and those of us who haven't, I'm asking you to please take a look at it, because we do not want to be part of the problem. As Cassandra has said, we need to be part of the solution.
And the other part of that, in my opinion, is we need to understand that people who have racist views may not necessarily be 100% horrible people.
Oh, they're not.
Sometimes
Thank you for that.
they're not horrible people. I have friends that I grew up with that I know say racist things. I also know that these are people that if I called them, they would come. So we have to learn how to, I don't know, how to just balance that.
Well, can I help you balance it?
Sure.
Can I help you balance it?
Please help us.
What have you said in your house that you don't want somebody else to hear?
Come on now, sis.
Balance it with that. That doesn't mean that you're a terrible person.
Right.
That may mean that you're hurting.
Right.
That may mean that you were taught wrong. That may mean a lot of different things. But what it doesn't mean is it doesn't, behaviors don't define us.
Come on now. Come on now.
God defines us.
Yes.
And we are who he says we are. And until we see ourselves as such and we allow people their process of healing, because that's all that it is. This is a country in need of healing.
Yes.
This is a world in need of healing because we've been taught wrong. We don't know how to love the way the Bible in 1 Corinthians says to love. That's how we love. And until we have that love language that meets people where they are, like Jesus did, and he sat down with the sinner, then we won't do anything but continue to offend, continue to cause harm, continue to cause division. So I have people in my family and in my life of every complexion, and we've had hard, when I tell you hard conversations, Democrats, Republicans, you know, I sat with a brother from church who had posted some foolishness on his page. And we sat down for an hour. Nobody else would talk to him after service. And I loved on him to the point where he still hits my inbox.
Yes.
Because he said, I never knew. Let's have these conversations.
And that's what I was saying. I'm all for that, but I want to be genuine with it.
We need to be real.
Because sometimes I believe that we can fake it.
Oh, we fake it all the time.
Just so we can, let's just say, get along. Can I say that? We can
Please
fake
say
it.
that,
I
sister.
agree with all that. I just believe that, like you said, E.T., have those conversations. But if I have a question or if I have a problem with what you said to me, I want to tell you, I have had a problem. I'm not going to say, oh, you okay, brother? I'm going to say, I got a problem with what you just said to me.
And here's why.
And can I give you an example?
Go ahead.
My son, of course, attends a school in a majority white area. He came home one day and he told me someone called him. I said, that's not funny. And this was when he was in middle school. When he went to high school, he had a problem. And he was having a conversation, because I always ask my children, how was school today? You know, we would sit down and we would have dinner to have those conversations. And he told me, I was told that I was not allowed someone put their hand up at the gym entrance and said I was not allowed because I was black. And then he laughed. I said, that's not funny. And that's why I said, I'm not going to sit and say some of the stuff you say to me is going to make me say and not question. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm calling the principal and I'm calling for a meeting. I called the principal and called for a meeting. And at that conference table, some things came out. And the black officer that was there, he said, you take this all the way. He said, you take it all the way. And so come to find out, it was actually a football player. He said it was a lacrosse player. He didn't want to affect his teammate. It was a football player. That football player was expelled from school immediately. So then they were called. Then I was now called. Now when other parents were having problems, they said, what did you do? How can you help? What is it that you could do? I said, you make sure you let them know it's not a he and ha moment, and it's not okay.
Well, and I'm gonna just, I know our time is short, but I'm gonna speak on that right now. One of the things, two things. First and foremost, as people of color, we need to understand it is not about what people think, it is about what people do. People are perfectly free to be bigots. You can be a bigot all day as long as you're not a racist. And racism is what we're fighting. Now, I would prefer that people aren't bigoted, and I do believe you can love people out of being a bigot.
Absolutely.
100%. But racism is tangible. It is quantifiable, and we need to make sure that we combat it whenever we can. The other part of that is we need to stop showing our teeth when it's not appropriate. We need to stop smiling when it's not funny. We need to stop getting along when we ain't really going anywhere. Because part of the issue is there are too many of us who get enough money that we get comfortable that we're not going to say something is racist. We're not going to say something is racially illiterate. We're not going to say something is socially unacceptable. And what happens is those of us who do point those things out, then we become the person that's crazy. We become the angry black man, the angry black woman, the aggressive black man. We become the person who needs to get off the race thing because obviously it's not that bad. Some of this is black folks need to not stop pretending. They need to stop pretending. Stop shamming. Just go ahead and say what it is. Because we need to stop believing that all white people know that that's what they're doing. They don't. A fish doesn't know he's wet unless you yank him out of the water. Do you think they think they're swimming? No, they're just going from point A to point B. If you live in a society where there are barriers to everybody else, but they're not to you, you have not seen those people's barriers. So how would you know? You shouldn't know. And we need to understand. Stop being mad at them for not knowing. Educate them. You can't educate them with a program. You can't educate them with a protest. Educate them with that everyday conversation.
Educate them with the Elevate Your Life talk radio. Educate them with Maintain Monday.
Come on now.
Educate them. We got a lot of things that can educate them. And one of the things that can educate them is this event that you have coming up. We would love to cut to this video that's going to give you a little bit more information about it. Wow, what an amazing event we're going to have on Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Celebrating what it is and empowering us to make the difference.
And so tell people how to get in contact with you, E.T.
Well, the Juneteenth celebration is The website is up. It's going to be a YouTube. It's going to be a virtual event. And if you go to E.T. Brown, my Facebook page, you'll see it there. If you go to YouTube and you type in Elkton Juneteenth Celebration, you'll find it there. It's going to be quite an event. I'm very, very proud of the work that I did with them and the entire committee, and it's going to be an annual event. And I'm also very proud of the town of Elkton and the mayor who initiated this event. This was an event that was not necessarily initiated just by black people. It was initiated by the mayor of Elkton, so kudos to him.
Yes, indeedy.
I think the way we can get involved is most important. If I don't say anything else, if we don't get anything before I leave this stage, is to register to vote. We have lost that from our forefathers. Those people sweat, they bled, and they died, and they marched, and they kept marching so that we could vote. And I don't have to tell you, if you're paying attention to what's going on in the world right now, they're trying to take the vote away again. And we need to make sure. The other thing we can do is we can talk to our friends. We can talk to our families. If you don't have 10 friends that don't look just like you, you need to get some. And I mean for real. I'll tell you something else. You need to go to a church where there's some black folks. You need to go to a church where there's some white folks. If you look around your church and it doesn't look like the neighborhood that you think you should grow up in, and it doesn't look like the Rainbow Coalition, you look for another church. Because part of the problem is we don't know each other. We are not in proximity with each other. And we need to do that. We need to get close with folks because it is hard to hate your brother that you see every day.
Absolutely.
Wow. And so I heard so much in your message today. Number one, how powerful knowledge is.
Yes.
And how God's people perish for the lack of knowledge. And also, in Philippians, it talks about God has given us enabling power to do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And I just want to invite our viewers into a relationship with Christ. In Romans 10:9, it says that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So I invite you into the family of Christ. Can you pray for our viewers?
Amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for being you. We bless you right now in the name of your precious Son, Jesus. And we thank you for knowledge. We thank you for the power that you put in each and every one of us. And we thank you for the spirit of unity. Father, we thank you for each and every person under the sound of my voice. And we ask that you would bless them. We ask that you would activate their understanding. We ask that you would put in them the desire to learn more, to know more, to do more. And more importantly, we ask that you give us all the spirit of unity and the spirit of long suffering and the spirit of a sound mind. For God, it is in you that we put our trust. It is in you that our whole being resides. And we count all of these things that we have spoke today as already done because we know where you go, everything must stand in attention and fall into submission. So as we leave this place and we leave you folks, never to leave the presence of God, we just ask God that you bless and keep each and every one of us until we see each other again. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Maintain Monday. We are so excited to be back in the studio.
Yes.
And we have a brand new look, a brand new feel, and brand new wisdom to drop on you every week. So meet us here next week, same time, same place on Maintain Monday.
Until then, keep maintaining.